It took almost 2 years for Red Dwarf to reach the screens again, with another 8-episode series, and, as had become commonplace, they completely retooled the show again. Possibly the biggest retooling since the show began. The Red Dwarf is back, the entire crew are alive again, and the main cast are arrested and thrown in the brig. I'm sorry, did I say brig? I meant prison, because there's now a giant prison on Red Dwarf. They're also in a paramilitary strike force of prisoners because there's now a giant prison on Red Dwarf. They redesigned the Red Dwarf too, a long and thin look that doesn't exactly scream dwarf to me, so I prefer the original. In universe, the redesign is because the nanobots rebuilt the ship from the original blueprints before the funding cutbacks, which is great because this is also the design they used in the remastered versions I talked about last series. So if you watch those ones and get to Series 8, you find out that the ship you started out with didn't actually exist. Anything else? Oh yeah, Rimmer's back. Not our Rimmer, who went off to become Ace, but a recreated original version from the pilot. Give or take 12 years. And the studio audience is even back. The last big change is that this 8-episode series is made up of only 5 stories. The opener, back in the red, is 3 parts long and only really needed to be 1 or 1.5, and later on there's a 2-parter called Pete. The last big change is that this 8-episode series is made up of only 5 stories, all written by Doug Naylor and Paul Alexander, the only new Series 7 writer to return. The tone of the show has completely shifted from the attempted drama of Series 7 to something much sillier. Anyway, Series 8 ran between the 18th of February and the 5th of April 1999. Some episodes aired early in America, but that's really not important. Nice to hear the original theme again. Lister and Rimmer are bunking together in prison. Lister's pissing off Rimmer and Rimmer's quietly seething. It's really impressive of Rimmer that it takes over 4 minutes until this happens.
You shut up!
Rimmer's pissed off because Lister poured something over him. I wonder what it was. Good thing we've a flashback to eventually tell us, in like 90 minutes. The ship started out giant but is quickly shrinking down to its original size, because Red Dwarf hates resolving cliffhangers in anything resembling a reasonable way. The same things happened to Lister's body, so I guess that wasn't an apology after all. But I do wonder why the nanobots changed Kachansky's outfit, changed her hair colour, and added a few inches to it. I'm glad they fixed Kryten's colour though, that silver was irritating. Anyway, tiny starbug's been sucked into an air vent, so this won't end well. Best part of the series, hands down. That was originally supposed to be Frankenstein, Lister's cat, but apparently she was too hard to animate. Anyway, they make it to the landing bay, losing most of Starbug along the way. And then they lose the rest of it. Status quo, duly destroyed, it's now time for the new status quo. Who better to bring it than Chen and Selby, 2 of Lister's best friends from Series 1. They'd have Peterson too, but Mark Williams was too successful at acting. Lister gets arrested for stealing and crashing Starbug, and smuggling stowaways on board. If he's found guilty, he's facing 2 years in the prison.
Well, if you lose, you'll probably get a couple of years in the brig.
What brig?
The brig on floor 13.
There isn't a floor 13.
Yeah, there is. It was classified.
First question, why was Lister blamed for that? Kachansky's there too. Second, why don't they want to know who let Lister to stasis? Third, why not let that be Kachansky's crime? Fourth, I thought they punished the crew with stasis. Fifth, it's a secret prison.
It was classified.
He'll be out in 2 years. It won't be secret then. And sixth, seeing as how Kachansky ends up in trial too, maybe she was blamed for that. But they didn't mention that. Understandable, really. They had to come up with 90 minutes of script. There wasn't time to mention literally everything. Sarcasm, sarcasm, sarcasm.
2 years without sex? You hope?
Rimmer's had none of the character development, so he's about 2% more assholey than he was in Stoke Me a Clipper. The crew has noticed that they're 3 million years into deep space, the ship design's changed, and Cat is clearly not human. But that's no reason to believe the main character's explanation. Lister gets Rimmer to investigate Starbug to get proof of their story in exchange for access to the crew's confidential files. He can use them to impress the officers and get a promotion. Kryten's getting some psych evaluation because he's claiming to be from the future.
Now that's in the future, isn't it?
Yes, sir. I was created after you died.
Lovely.
That conversation goes so well, the psychiatrist suggests Kryten be returned to factory settings. In Starbug, Rimmer finds the confidential files and the positive viruses from quarantine. How? I don't know, because they brought those onto Red Dwarf with them. Anyway, takes a swig of sexual magnetism and prepares for all the sex ever.
Bottoms up. Then bottoms down, and hopefully bottoms up again.
Then it's on to Back in the Red Part 2. I'm going to leave what passes for analysis until after the third part. Part 2 opens with flashbacks and Hollister doing an impersonation of Holly in Series 1 and 2. Rimmer's immediately trying to get into Captain Hollister's good books by using inside information. The possibility of a drive plate accident that could wipe out the crew, a blueberry muffin like his wife would make, and hemorrhoid cream. Hollister is so impressed that he gives Rimmer an invitation to an officer's meal a few days later. Kryten's been classified as a woman because he has no penis, which is strangely regressive for a show that gave us one of TV's first interracial gay kisses, had colour and gender-blind casting, and had a character transition and no one gave a crap about it. Twice. Anyway, sent to a gynecologist played by the best living master Jeffrey Beavers, aka the second one with a face that was melting. On top of everything else, the no-penis woman thing is a bit weird, given that he's a robot. But I suppose they needed someone to be locked up in the woman's wing with Kachansky, and a stupid reason is still a reason.
No, the only mechanoids that were ever issued with genitals were the ones created to work on Italian starships.
The next day, the trial begins. They're going to be mind-scanned. A fictional reality will be created that's indistinguishable from reality, and their interactions will be watched. The idea is to make them think it's real and look for evidence that they're lying about their story. Rimmer visits Lister before the mind scan begins and breaks the deal. Luckily, Lister gets to touch the luck virus, which is somehow on the outside of the sealed container, what a stroke of luck, and escapes the cell. Anyway, after some gun and toilet-based shenanigans...
Now, I want you to take down your pants and sit on a toilet.
Then what are you going to do to us?
I'm going to look at you.
Kryten is grabbed by some security personnel and sent for factory reset, leaving Robert Llewellyn to do his best David Ross impersonation.
My name is Kryten. I am programmed to serve.
Silly.
They were going to ask original Kryten to come back and dub the voice, but there wasn't time or money for it. I have a few comments on this. Compare Robert Llewellyn's cameo here as the Data Doctor to his cameo as a robot expert in Series 3.
Hello, I'm the Data Doctor. If you would like me to examine your hard disk, press examine.
Greetings. As you are no doubt aware, your Kryten Series 3 mechanoid is now reaching the end of its useful service life.
This really sums up how the two series are different. Series 8 mistakes zaniness for humour and cleverness. And look at what they're deleting. Maybe I'm dumb, but I really thought guilt was a core part of his programming. Lister frees Kachansky and uses some of the sexual magnetism virus on his fingers to instigate this Oedipal thing. Luckily for her, the luck virus cancelled it out. If both viruses are gettable through a sealed tube, then how come the ship's not filled with literal lucky fuckers? Rimmer swigs down some sexual magnetism on his way to the officer's meal and proceeds to sleep with all the women present. As you can see, one of the many things Series 8 replaced humour with was non-consensual sex. Lister and Kachansky free Kat, who insists on wearing his disguise under his ordinary clothes, and find Kryten, who doesn't recognise them.
I don't believe we've had the pleasure.
They decide to grab men away, but first, it's time to do the worst thing in Red Dwarf history. An idea so bad, it even brings back Kryten's memory. Have everyone dress up like Dwayne Dibley and reenact Reservoir Dogs.
That was so terrible, I think you gave me cancer.
I want to know what supply closet is filled with mop heads and giant false teeth.
I got a great idea for a new disguise. The Dibley family.
What the hell is Kat doing? Not only willingly, but comes up with the idea of dressing up like Dwayne Dibley. Someone he'd literally rather die than be.
But there's only one bullet left.
We could all put our heads together and the bullet could go down the line.
Anyway, Captain Hollister mentions to Rimmer that Lister and all's escape isn't real. It's actually part of the mind scan. Rimmer realizes that Lister could reveal their deal for the confidential files and get him in trouble, so he decides to mess with it. But first, it's time to anesthetize his groin. This was supposed to be a 2-part story, but Doug Naylor had to make 8 episodes and ran out of time to script one. So he took what he already had for Back in the Red, actors and sets, and wrote new scenes for it, stretching the idea beyond breaking point and making it a 3-parter. Back in the Red is the Hobbit of British TV sci-fi. Part 3 begins with another flash forward to prison. Rimmer spent most of the morning being assaulted by the prison social worker and priest. It's the usual, Lister and Rimmer trapped together and hating each other's stuff before the flashback begins with more from Hollister.
This is a diary of Captain F. Hollister of the mining ship Red Dwarf.
Hollister reveals that he knows about Rimmer's plan to use the ship's confidential files to become an officer, and that it's the method he used to become the captain.
If the crew discover I'm really just Dennis the Donut Boy, I'm finished.
I'm not exactly in love with that idea. Until Series 8, Hollister was a generally competent captain. Lister can't all make it to a redesigned Blue Midget, but ground control won't let them leave with it until it has an overlong and pointless dance number with the cat. Don't ask why, please, just know that it lasts almost 2 minutes of a 28-minute show. This isn't just The Hobbit of British TV, it's the Police Academy 7 of Red Dwarf. Rimmer gets into a VR suite, watches the mind scan, and orders the computer to delete all references to his agreement with Lister.
All references removed.
What was that?
Unfortunately, it happens in real time. Anyway, this helps him work out the truth, that it's all fake. Cat spots the backdoor exit, a button labelled E11T. XI is the Roman numeral for 11, so exit.
He got that.
I think it proves without a shadow of a doubt this is not reality.
They end up in the screensaver and Cat figures it out again. A bottle of ketchup is labelled tomato sauce. Power ketchup. Power source. So it'll shut down the game. Thankfully. They end up with Rimmer all heading to a Blue Midget to really escape. Yeah, he betrayed them while they were in VR in order to save his own skin, but they kind of expect it at this point. There's another bit with a flight controller, but you can suffer that on your own time.
Come back, Mr. Fox! Come back!
On the way from Red Dwarf, Holly has a hell of an admission.
If I'm so stupid, explain why I was able to recreate a new set of nanobots and get them to resurrect the crew.
What?
Hey?
What?
I know that the idea that Kryten's self-repair system could destroy and rebuild a whole ship and crew was a bit silly, but that is hardly an improvement. I'd remind you that it appears he did that while alone in a planetoid, being a watch, and the nanobots were 200 years away at top speed. Why'd he do that? As a diversion to keep Lister sane, and to be convoluted as fuck, and to make no fucking sense. Because keeping Lister sane is Rimmer's job.
My job is to keep Dave sane. I brought Rimmer back because he's the best person to keep you sane.
Holly's also worked out that they're still in VR, but since there's no logical reason for Holly to be in VR with them, maybe he's part of the program and the nanobots thing was crap. The multi-level reality thing was planned out by the original, recreated pre-senility Holly. All of Rimmer's actions since he got the invitation to dinner have been in VR. Anyway, they're all found innocent of stealing Starbug, but guilty of using classified information from the confidential files.
They've been found guilty on another charge and got an entirely different 2 years in the brig.
Even though Rimmer and Lister were the only ones who did that.
Why do we care? Nothing makes any sense no matter where we are.
This is a textbook example of what happens if you take something simple and keep adding things to it. It does not become epic, it becomes annoying as hell. Hollister takes the luck virus, but they hide the sexual magnetism virus used on Rimmer because prison rape is hilarious. Like I said earlier, this series has a lot of rape in it. This is why Rimmer was pissed off at Lister at the start of part 1. I think Lister got off light with the silent treatment. Anyway, this is very overlong, the crew and prison stuff does not feel like Red Dwarf, and half the episodes were made of meandering cul-de-sacs of pointlessness. Hollister is a caricature of himself, and Holly looks like crap. It's like they didn't even try, and the original Holly in Red Dwarf somehow looks even worse. What is wrong with some simple post-production like in the earlier series is? One bit I did like was this cameo by John Lynch.
I'm nice.
At the time, he was the most pierced man in the world. He started when he retired as a bank manager. Oh, pensioners and their hobbies. Episode 4 is Cassandra. It introduces the Canaries, a small penal legion who were sent into derelicts at the Red Dwarf encounters. The idea is that they're given special treatment and privileges in exchange for dying first. Quite how you run something like this while maintaining the secrecy of your onboard prison I do not understand.
It was classified. A need-to-know only basis.
Is the whole crew locked in their quarters with the curtains drawn when they go from the prison to the ship? I shouldn't complain though, the Canaries include the single, best, shining element of Series 8. Kill, fucking crazy.
Let's go kill something! Yeah!
But I'll get to that. First, Holly has an idea for Lister to do his 2-year sentence in just over 3 months.
Become a dog.
Honestly, I think Holly's taking the piss. Even he's not that stupid. Lister signed up for the Canaries thinking they're a singing troupe. Wouldn't be a big deal to Rimmer if he didn't also sign him and the rest of the main cast up too. Why do the Canaries even exist? Red Dwarf is a mining ship. The prisoners are being transported to a penal colony. Apparently. Why would they need a secret convict army? Unless they've literally just been created. In fact, I'll assume that's what happened and just go with it. Oh, there's the Warden, played by Graham McTavish, aka Dwalin from The Hobbit, or Dante in God of War ripoff number 35. Anyway, they're sent in to check on a derelict and find out what killed the crew. Besides the passage of literally millions of years. Why are the main cast worried? This is exactly the sort of crap they spent years doing, only now they have their own red shirts.
Yeah, it's got like big teeth and claws and like loads of heads. Yeah, great!
Have I mentioned how much I love Kill Crazy? In fact, they should have just replaced Kachansky with him.
Here we go! Hello! Yeah!
On board the derelict, they find an AI played by Miss Marple. She's called Cassandra and can predict the future with 100% accuracy. Turns out Lister is going to die removing a brow with his teeth aged 181. So that fits with future echoes.
Taking a broad off with me teeth aged 181.
This is you aged 171, Dave.
That's a hell of a sexy way to go. You goit!
The ship was sent here on autopilot because Cassandra was deemed too dangerous. They go to leave, but the bulkhead's just given way and the ship's being flooded.
All the Canaries will be dead within 1 hour, except for Rimmer.
Yes!
Who will be dead in 20 minutes.
Part of why this episode exists is to mess with expectations. People assume the status quo would reassert itself and Rimmer would become a hologram again. But with Red Dwarf, it usually takes at least a series for that to happen. Here's Rimmer next series. Case in point. Anyway, since no one called Rimmer in the conversation, he suggests that maybe Cassandra saw someone else die wearing his name tag. To test this, he dunks coffee over one of the assistant wardens and swaps jackets with him before bringing to Cassandra.
What happens to me?
You die in about 4 seconds' time of a heart attack after hearing the news that you're going to die of a heart attack.
Now, on the surface, this looks like a problem with the episode's internal logic. Cassandra would know everything and so would know who Rimmer is, but she's also just expressing what she already knows will happen, going along with Rimmer's ruse. Of course, Rimmer's still doomed because all the Canaries, barring Lister, Kachansky, Cat and Kryten, are going to die. So Kryten suggests using their temporary invincibility to try and get Rimmer out of the derelict and back to Red Dwarf.
We cannot die.
In other words, if I... What's that for? You can't die. Yeah, but I can still feel pain, you smeghead.
Unfortunately, they lost Rimmer down an open hatch, and he and Kachansky end up trapped together. Turns out he doesn't drown with the rest of the Canaries, but is shot by Lister, who found him having sex with Kachansky.
Why would I want to sleep with you?
Maybe you get blind drunk.
Well, that doesn't excuse my other 4 senses.
Cat, Lister, Kryten, and thankfully Kill Crazy are safe in the diving bell. Lister heads back to the derelict to save Kachansky, and then arrives an hour earlier than he was supposed to. Rimmer and Kachansky don't have sex, and Rimmer does not die. Cassandra's not wrong though, she just made stuff up. She's seen the future that Lister kills her, and she was trying to hurt him.
She's trying to make me suffer now for something that I'm destined to do in the future.
Not a great plan.
As plans go, attempting to force sex via causality is certainly unique and would probably be rape. Anyway, Lister doesn't deliberately kill her, but he sets off a Rube Goldberg machine of death by accident. Like I said earlier, this is the best episode of the series. It's not a pointless multi-parter, it's just a different take on a sci-fi concept. Basically, with a small rewrite, this could have felt at home in series 3 to 7. In short, it feels like Red Dwarf, unlike most of the rest of the series, which often feels like something else parodying Red Dwarf, or parodying bad sci-fi in general. Oh, and the Canaries theme is great, as were the sets and costumes. It's nice that part of the show is as good as ever. Next is Krytie TV. Rimmer and Lister have received the mail, death threats, fake lottery wins to mess with them, the usual. Oh, and a letter from Lister's friend Peterson.
My God, that is tragic.
What's happened to him? Has he died?
Died? You think he'd write and tell you?
Perhaps he was dictating. Oh, shut up.
Peterson found Lister's guitar in Starbuck's wreckage and is sending it to him. The guards took the strings, partially because of the suicide rules and partially because Rimmer would garrote him with them. There's also a letter giving Lister the chance for an appeal, so they have to be on their best behaviour. On the way back from a mission, Krytie starts complaining, in great detail, about the monotony of being forced to shower with the girls in the woman's wing.
Their bodies all wet and foamy. Oh my goodness, we've been frozen in time again.
Kill Crazy suggests that Krytie records the showering for his own personal use. Rimmer refuses to allow it because it could derail Lister's appeal.
It's voyeuristic, exploitative, and immature.
All right, who are you? What have you done with our Rimmer?
And exactly where the fuck is Holly?
Appeal? Yeah, I'm appealing.
That's a minority view.
I don't get this. They bring Holly back, fair enough, but then they divorce him from actually running the ship, leaving that to a rebuilt, non-senile Holly. And then they drop him in to say something mad and or unfunny a couple of times an episode.
Become a dog.
He has even less to do than he had in series 4 and 5, and he's much more extraneous. They really must have missed Norman Lovett. Why not force the crew to deal with senile Holly running the ship? You could get some humour out of that. He could even help Lister out from a position of power. Or, if you need to have two Hollys, why not have the Norman Lovett one back as the original Holly and leave Lister with Hattie Hayridge's version? You could have a series-long battle of half-wits between them. Anything's better than this. It's an insult to the character. Anyway, Krytie refuses.
Oh, excuse me, I'll be with my fellow sisters, doing it for ourselves.
So, someone stole the warden's glass eye, and the guards' helmets are based on Hudson's from the last day. That's cool. Anyway, Krytie gets grabbed and reprogrammed to remove his ethical subroutines. How? I don't know. He's more advanced than any tech they have on board. There are some idiots in a cell block, and the last time this happened, Krytie had to talk Lister through it bit by bit. The B-movie the male prisoners are forced to watch is interrupted by a broadcast from the newly evilish Krytie. That's a real pity. It's awesome.
The invisible aliens! Look! There's one!
A far better waste of time than most of the series.
Live and lithe Women's Shower Night!
Anyway, the show's so successful that Kryten's had himself gilded and bought the Louvre. Lister tells Kachansky what's happened, and he understandably ends up in the doghouse for watching the whole thing. For 3 hours. Then he buys her a present to say sorry.
Flower? Flowers?
Jesus, I remember when this show used to be funny. Anyway, word about the show gets out and Krytie gets thrown out of the woman's wing. I really don't get how this prison works. Maybe they decided he was a dick. Anyway, he tells Lister that Kachansky's going on a date with her ex-boyfriend Tim.
So she started going out with Tim again. He's taking her to the Officers' Club tonight.
I'm thinking the show has completely forgotten that she's from a parallel universe. They decide to sabotage the date by sneaking to Tim's quarters and leaving a bunch of Rimmer stuff. But it's another Krytie TV show and they've been trashing the warden's quarters. Which, of course, would ruin the appeal.
The surprises haven't finished yet here on Krytie TV, because Mr. Ackerman and his red-hot date are due back any second. Sir, it's a race against time. Start cleaning that room.
Of course, they manage it, but I don't see what they could have against that statue. That is badass. It's like a gay T-1000. Also, not very Rimmer. Anyway, they probably beat Krytie back to normalcy. The appeal comes through and they succeed. Lister's allowed to have his guitar strings back because only a moron would think it was an appeal against their sentence. This story is just crap. It's a bunch of stuff that was already done better mixed in with stuff that's not funny. Poor Cat too. This series, he's pretty much been turned into an extra that sometimes speaks. You know what we could have got instead of this? A story dropped after a single draft called Foire, where they find a perfume that causes insatiable attraction between those who smell it. Rimmer would have had sex with Kachansky, Lister would have been jealous, and there would have been piles of naked people who died mid-screw. And I suspect I would have enjoyed it more than this. Not because it was original, it's clearly more of the same. Non-consensual sexual stuff, Lister's jealous, Kachansky's basically an object. But at least it sounds recognisably like Red Dwarf. Instead of the plot of a shit 80s sex comedy transplanted onto Red Dwarf. Next is the two-parter Pete, which started as a single-part story called The Captain's Office, but there were issues like him back in the red, so they expanded it to his detriment. Lister and Rimmer are in trouble. They've been brought to the dun-dun-dun Captain's Office for a prank they pulled on Warden Ackerman. They stuck truth drugs into his inhaler. Now, this is the Captain's Office, but in the pilot, the Captain's Office looked like this. Why is it that they went to the effort to recreate the bunk room from Series 1 for one brief scene in Back in the Red, but they built this for The Office, when it'll be on screen for loads more time than the bunk room? Yeah, they'd have to go through the bridge each time, but screw it. Go through the bridge. The prank was in retaliation for Warden Ackerman beating Cat like a musical piñata. Hollister decides that Rimmer, Lister, and a team of other prisoners have to play a team of wardens at basketball, knowing that if they lose, the other prisoners beat the crap out of them. This idea isn't funny, I can only assume it was written out of desperation. They spike the guards' halftime juice with some super Viagra to win the match, and they end up back in the captain's office, where they're put on potato duty for 2 weeks. They're also on punishment menus, so the worst food the ship has. Lister, though, is friends with the Scudders, so he gets takeout.
Here's a little something for you. Same time tomorrow.
They send Bob, the Scudder, off to steal a programmable virus from a lab in Z-Deck, one that they can use to eat the potato skins each day and give them a 2-week holiday. The others are on board a derelict that 2 previous Canary battalions have vanished while investigating. The earlier squads found a temporal storage unit. It messes with time.
Where did you come from?
Krytie messes with the thing, doing all sorts of glorious things to Kachansky and the cat. And Kachansky suggests smuggling it back on board so they can use it to make the prison term pass in seconds. This is going to go so well.
If we can smuggle this thing back on Red Dwarf, it can make our prison terms pass in seconds.
I think this is the point where the last vestiges of what they attempted with Kachansky in Series 7 were stamped out. Gone is the smart woman with her own agenda. She's just the chick and as dumb as any of them. And they had a perfectly good dumbass on hand who could have suggested that. He's called the Cat. Anyway, Lister and Rimmer spread the virus, which works a bit too well.
My God, they're eating my clothes.
Okay, a lot too well. And they're back in the office again. They managed to give Hollister the virus. I'm not sure viruses actually do this, but in Series 8 reality didn't exist. Anyway, Hollister gives them 2 months in solitary in return. There they meet Birdman, a crazy prisoner who's been in solitary for years. Now, you'd think they'd unite his name, Birdman, with his only characteristic, being crazy, but making him hallucinate birds because there's not meant to be fucking birds on board. No animals at all. Because if animals were allowed on board, there'd be no show.
Not only are you so stupid, you bring aboard an unquarantined animal and jeopardize every man and woman on this ship.
He's 9 years old, which in sparrow years is, 9 years old.
But no, it's just a lazy reference to the Birdman of Alcatraz. Luckily, Lister's Scudder friend releases them. The others have frozen the whole ship. They use the wand to fix Rimmer and Lister's hair and resurrect Birdman's dead bird, Pete. It works, after a fashion. I think it would have worked out with the budget issues with the captain's office would have come from. This is the first half of a decent episode stretched out with painfully extended extra crap. Thanks to a mess-up, Pete Part 2's Sunday Night Repeat was skipped thanks to a sports thing, and wasn't aired until after the series finale. This might be the most interesting thing about the episode. After Pete eats Birdman, it follows him up with some Fresh Scudder. Fresh Scudder, who's holding the time wand.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah, go on. We're finished!
How to get the time wand back? It's pretty simple, really. Lure the T-Rex into the food bay and get it to eat a bunch of fibre. Or a giant curry, because Lister gets his way.
T-Rexes don't like curry.
They're hard, aren't they? Of course they like curries. But we've got nothing to lose. And if the worst comes to the worst and the dino doesn't eat it, I'll scoff at myself.
It tries some of the curry and, having never eaten spice before, goes in a confused and angry rampage into the rest of the ship. The rest of the ship with a crew who have been unfrozen. So we're back in the captain's office again. Anyway, in an effort to get rid of the heat in its mouth, Pete ate tons of mint ice cream, orange ice pops and Coke. It then had an attack of diarrhea and nearly drowned Hollister.
What about Bob? Did he show up?
Who the hell do you think landed on my head?
This story was so padded they literally spend over 30 seconds of Lister blasting Captain Hollister with the time wand and making him say the same thing over and over and over again.
See you in 10 minutes?
See you in 10 minutes?
Uh-oh, Hollister's walked in and Rimmer bad-mouthing him.
A man whose family crest is made up of 2 cream buns and a profiterole. A man whose idea of a light snack is standing behind me, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
In all the excitement of making him say the same 5 words over and over and over again, they left the time wand. Over in the woman's wing, cause Kryten wasn't moved from the woman's wing after all, Kryten's made himself a penis. And it's got a mind of its own. So that's good. The Canaries are sent on a mission to deal with Pete. Use the time wand if possible, but die trying to kill it if need be. I'm really not sure why they don't just blast it with several rounds of heat-seeking bazookoid fire. If it's good enough to kill a curry beast, it can kill a T-Rex. Kill Crazy, the icing on the cake that is humanity, wants to take it down in hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah, but them T-Rexes, mate, only got little arms and ain't got no reach.
But before they reach Pete, there's always time for an alien parody involving a rogue penis. This whole penis thing was meant to be in Cassandra, but it was moved here when that overran and there wasn't quite enough here for 2 parts of Pete. So maybe Kryten was kicked out of the woman's wing last episode. Anyway, Kill Crazy and his equally zany but much less entertaining friend Baxter blast Lister and Rimmer with the time wand so they can get their chance to fight Pete. They then assault them, but it does nothing. They accidentally put their bodies slightly to sync, so the effects of the beating will catch up with them at the most inopportune time. You know, usual stuff. And that inopportune time is when the captain's berating them for losing the time wand. They get the time wand back easily enough, as Kill Crazy and Baxter have turned themselves into gorillas. And so ends the ballad of Kill Crazy the Magnificent. They bring Birdman back to life, turn Pete back into a sparrow, and destroy the time wand. Just in time to see that Pete somehow saw the 90s Godzilla remake and copied its ending. The newborn makes its way to Captain Hollister as he's getting a massage. Cue the final visit to the captain's office. He's sending himself to solitary for 12 months. This one's better than Back in the Red, but only because it was stretched to breaking point, not far beyond it. Plus, it'd Kill Crazy. I really would have liked to have seen what this would have been like as a single-parter. It had the makings of an okay episode. Next up is the series finale, Only the Good. Though it's not just the series finale, it's the last episode for over 10 years, the last Red Dwarf produced by the BBC, and wasn't supposed to be the series finale. The actual finale was cancelled over money issues. That's where they had to stretch Back in the Red. Only the Good was meant to lead into an episode called Earth, and it would have featured them somehow making it home, crashing the Red Dwarf into the planet, and destroying the future humans living there. It also probably would have been the last episode of the show. And after Series 8, it would have been a mercy killing. Because the planned series finale was cancelled, they were unsure how to end this episode. I'll talk about the 4 endings when we get there. An escape pod is picked up by Red Dwarf. It's the last survivors of a human ship destroyed by a weird metal-eating microscopic life form. There wasn't any money left to make this pod, so it was made in exchange for a bottle of red wine. The production designer gave 2 crates of red wine as a thank you. Anyway, this all bodes well. Rimmer's on probation, acting as the sick Captain Hollister's personal valet. The only survivor in the pod, apart from the monster, is Talia, an old friend of Hollister's.
Oh, well, the nanobots must have resurrected you, too.
Okay, so they're flying through space, randomly resurrecting people, ships and whatnot? Sure, why not? Actually, lots of reasons, but I'll ignore them. Rimmer steals a chocolate bar and makes a lifelong enemy.
You are my nemesis. One day our paths will cross again, and I will destroy you.
That life may well be short, because Chekhov's vending machine vengeance is incoming. Fun fact, Nemesis' original meaning wasn't arch-enemy. It was the agent of your destruction, which he is. This is unexpectedly literate for Series 8. That's Tony Slattery as the vending machine. He was often seen in early Whose Line Is It Anyway getting very angry. Kat's having a breakdown thanks to the stress of working the prison radio station. Why does your top secret prison have a radio station? And thanks to Lister, Kryten hilariously misunderstands periods.
Come on then, open it. I want you to try it on. And maybe you could do a little twirl in it.
So I guess he definitely wasn't kicked out of the woman's wing. Kryten and Kachansky get their revenge on Lister by somehow hiding some giant bottles of illegal prison hooch in him and Rimmer's room, with less than 10 minutes until cell inspection. It's stuff so strong that it gets him hammered after a small mouthful. Baxter, the crazed inmate who owned the hooch, wants revenge. This will involve death, so the rest of the main cast decide to join Rimmer and Lister in the Medibay, so they can escape and steal a ship. Cat tries to get himself hospitalized, but accidentally makes a gang of large men his bitches. Damn that cat sexiness. So he just disguised himself as a nurse. On the way out, they find out about the metal-eating life form on board and warn the crew. The crew, who decide that the ship's doomed and escape, leaving the prisoners to die with the ship. To try and find a cure, Kryten creates a machine to access a parallel universe. Rimmer heads over. It's different from any parallel universe we've already seen. Everything's opposite. Rimmer's the captain, Hollister's the screw-up on parole, and Talia is Rimmer's friend.
What are you doing?
I'm giving you a big wet snog with oodles of Tommy tongue.
But I'm your sister.
Oh dear. Actually, she's a nun, and that was yet more non-consensual stuff. Anyway, Kachansky's a receptionist, and Kat's a scientist who gets to say this line.
Cesium francolithic mixy alibidium rixy dixy doxy dexy droxa. You look surprised.
I never thought I'd ever hear you say that.
They accidentally filmed that with a black test tube, but rather than make him say it again, they digitally painted it white to keep continuity. Rimmer takes Kat's cure and returns to Red Dwarf just in time to discover it on the brink of collapse. The others escaped into the mirror universe and he just missed them. The machine's been destroyed by the virus thing too, so there's no escape. Rimmer's alone in a dying spaceship with a useless formula, because it became its opposite when he came back into his own reality. So it's not a cure, but the original methylating virus. Also, there's a very angry food dispenser.
Every dog has his tag.
And so, the Grim Reaper, played by director Ed By, comes through Rimmer, but only the good die young.
Not today, matey.
All in all, this is better than most of the series. It's not stretched beyond breaking, but it's also not very good. It's a bit disjointed, what with it being generic sitcom Red Dwarf, then sci-fi madness, and then just plain madness. It being funny would have helped. But I did like the vending machine. Talia was a complete waste of time who raised so many more questions than are healthy. As for the endings, there's the one they used that wasn't scripted and was literally come up with on the drive to the studio. There was the original one where Rimmer saved the ship but left the non-main character stranded in Starbucks and Blue Midgets. There was one where Rimmer went down with the ship, like any good captain, and there was a never-filmed ending where Ace Rimmer would have swooped in and saved Rimmer. Now, I don't know if that Ace was the original Rimmer or not, and I doubt the script knew either. Series 8 has severe issues. Overall, it's pretty bad. The stretched nonsense taking over half the series didn't help. It somehow manages to be worse than Series 7, and that's an achievement. It's not clever, it's not imaginative, it's lost all grip on anything resembling reality. And there is so much non-consensual stuff. So much. Cassandra was easily the best episode, and Work Out the Worst is a challenge. A full 6 episodes are some degree of crap. I'll say back in the red for stretching 30 minutes of material to almost 90.
I'm going out like I came in, screaming and kicking.
You can't whack death on the head.
If he comes near me, I'm going to rip his nipples off.
We will travel to the ripsticks, where you will place a coin.
Not today, matey.
In the